So I live in a laneway. I've lived in a back alley for the last 25 years. When we actually purchased our lot, I would say tattoo parlors were the most prominent retail type, and it's transformed remarkably. In a city like Toronto, we must intensify, but we have to find smart ways of doing it. Lots of people live in suburbia, eating up the best farmland in the entire country. This is not a good idea. A lot of people live in towers, condos, all over the city. That's one way of densifying and perfectly valid. But within our residential neighborhoods that are really existing through much of the urban core, we need to look at alternate ways of densification. Ways that actually ensure that there's still fabric and community, but also we need to be denser.
I'm at the border of UofT's downtown Toronto campus in an alleyway between Glen Morris and Sussex. And this is where the pilot project to build a number of laneway houses is taking place. In fact, behind me is where 2 of the first laneway houses will be built. While almost 6 million people call the GTA home, it's becoming harder and more unaffordable for them to find their place in the city. Brigitte Shim was an early adopter and is an advocate of laneway housing in Toronto. She believes we need to shift our ideas of what a home can be in order to see real change in our urban landscape. So would the number 7 be for the street over there, or would it be, is there a name for the lane?
It's called Leslie Garden Lane. So once they give you permission to build in a laneway, you can actually name your lane.
You, in the early 90s, were doing a lot of advocating for laneway houses.
Yes.
What were the challenges that you faced at that time?
I think that laneways are spread all across the city. So there's no one neighborhood that has laneways. They're everywhere. And so in a way, it's actually a very dispersed community. But I actually think that there should actually be a gathering of people in laneways because there's actually enough critical mass to actually form their own ratepayers group. So when I'm standing at my front door, I can very clearly hear the Queen Street streetcar rumbling along. I can hear ambient traffic noises. I'm very much part of an active neighborhood in the middle of the city. When I open my door, I really enter another world. The square footage of this house is actually very typical for this residential neighborhood in Toronto. It's not big, it's not small, it's just pretty average. So for us, this one main space is really about living in the middle of the city, but feeling more like you're outside than inside. The garden helps to extend the house visually, even though the footprint isn't any larger. And so it really just feels generous and big, even though it's not huge. And so we're using lots of kind of design devices to really make a small space feel bigger, to actually connect you to nature. I actually feel as we become denser and more urban as a society, we actually need really wonderful, small, humane spaces to connect us to nature in the middle of the city.
The Here on Sussex project will help people see the many possibilities of laneway housing. And once the pilot project is complete, there are plans to build almost 50 laneway houses right by UofT's downtown Toronto campus. This UofT project could positively impact the affordable housing crisis and influence future laneway policy and development. Brigitte Shim calls this necessary growth and densification incremental urbanism. And this could change the landscape of what we call home.